Cool. Check 1, 2.
All right, so anatomically, I use the Essential Anatomy 5 app. I will drop a link to that application to all of you if you need it. It's not the end-all, be-all. It's just my favorite thing to use, both for you and with the client, because I can pop it open on my iPad and I can say, hey, is this the area that's giving you trouble? There are some ways. There's a learning curve when it comes to operating it. We can go through that, I think, at a later date when it comes to the application of this skill set. I'll make sure that you're more competent in the use of this app. For now, it's just going to serve as a visual purpose today. So I'm going to add all and then reduce all. I can add and create a map of what this human looks like. When it comes to that bony prominence that I was talking about, that little section right there is the only piece of the shoulder that actually touches the rest of the skeleton. So everything out here floats, and it floats on top of that rib cage. So the next thing I'm going to look for is, what does that rib cage look? There's your diaphragm, right? Everybody can think of someone who's taught you to breathe, diaphragmatic breathing. I prefer to talk about it as an expansion breathing, because each of these tissues expands and elevates and then maintains that new space. So this is where you're going to feel, especially with new clients, you may feel tightness back here in these areas, because for the first time you're using these long muscles that attach all the way to the spine, and they've been retired, essentially. They've been short, and you're now making them long. So you don't want to just say, hey, these are going to wake back up and work excellently. No, that's why we do it 3 times a day in the small doses that we do. 6 minutes 3 times a day versus 20 minutes all at once, because these tissues are very small, but they're essential for the stability of this neck and shoulder, right? Long lines, lots of muscles. I'm not going to quiz you all on the names of the muscles. I just want you to see these shapes and these designs and how that lower spine. Next month, we're going to dive deeper into the spine. But I want you to see these shapes. You've got striations, lines that match up with striations further down. But if you look, it goes all the way up, and you'll actually have one that attaches all the way to the top of the head, down through the spine, the trapezius, biggest muscle in the upper body, lats, biggest muscle that relate to the shoulder. They're going to connect into that inside of that humerus, okay, that longest arm bone. When you do the reaching work that we've been doing, and when you do the underhand gyroscope work, this is getting pulled apart. So if I take this arm and take it away, take this arm away, and then open that thumb, and then bicep close to the body, you're going to get this to engage, as well as the serratus, that wing-looking structure. That is what that scapula glides on. That is what protects that scap right there. So if you have someone with a winged scapula, what that means is this bone is going to wing out. So you got winged scapula, you got this person, this version of the human. You're going to look at, hey, how can I get that serratus to do its job? Right? And the way to get that serratus to do its job, for me, one of the easiest ways is to do the closed chain rockers. So the hands to the ground and rocking away and rocking towards, and rocking away and rocking towards. But you have to be insightful enough to really put pressure in the hand and the shoulder in order to engage this area. Otherwise, you're going to be working the hip with the rocker. So underside, this oblique, commonly strained in tennis players, baseball players. Look how big and long and paper thin it really is. But what it creates is stability once again for the rib cage, and you'll see serratus anterior, that wing structure, and then we're going to look at scapula. Okay, so you've got supra because it's on top. This one's commonly injured because when this structure becomes imbalanced, this gets pinched on and gets all pissed off. Versus it's supposed to glide through this very small area. So you can see where you can quickly run into trouble. You have the nerves that shoot through there, and you're going to see where nerves can be pinched inside of this shoulder, coming right off the neck. So it's a delicate structure, highly mobile, and you can see if it collapses, if this shoulder rolls towards the rib cage, or you can get in a lot of trouble. So I'll screenshot this image right here, because that's going to be big for all of you to have as a visual, to be able to show people that maybe having hand and thumb pain, that it is related to the neck and the shoulder. Supraspinatus, the very top one, okay? There's one underneath. Zoom in, find it. Subscapularis. Subscapularis because it's under submarine, it's under this shoulder blade. And if you look in there, you're going to find that it attaches right here. So this is a common area that gets pulled forward, and now you know that this is likely going to be taut and tight. So when you start to open the hand and take the elbow by the side, that's lengthening that deep subscap a lot of times. When you open the shoulders, when you look up, when you do the underhands, when you do the elbow pass, when you do any of the work, overhead reach, and then come back down, thumb out, palm up. That's what's rotating this out and open and creating more space for all of this. It's like the plumbing that your brother-in-law did because he wanted to save money under the sink, and ultimately it goes bad. But it's a beautiful design. Challenge all of you to study the neck, the shoulder. We're going to be going into more detail on all of these pieces. But that shoulder is a floating structure, is really what I want you to know. It's got one bony prominence, one little bitty area that it touches the rest of the skeleton. Everything else, it's under its own control. So if you can control the hand, control the elbow, think with the extremity, you can keep it up and away. You can look away from it. There's nerve glides that we'll do. There's a ton of work. It really comes up in the spine section. When you really get a better understanding of the shoulder. I know I'm teaching the shoulder series and putting the bait out there that the spine is next, but when you see that this structure has to expand and elevate, you'll realize how to secure that shoulder, and then you can add basic little movements. You can see the difference right here with all these three. There are three different muscles, three different attachment points, and then no matter where that hand is, it's going to recruit a different tissue. So back and over, straight out to the side, we might be getting these two. Anything up, you're going to be getting this one. Anything down below, you're getting down in this area. So think about that when you're doing your underhand gyros. You may have some relief symptoms here. If you've got symptomatic clients in the upper shoulder, drop that hand, drop that elbow down below to create a stretch over the top. Deltoids, let's add them. Right? Deltoids, let's add them. Little bitty short muscle groups. Those get atrophied really easy, especially back here in this posterior deltoid. Everybody's anterior or front. Anterior is front of the body, posterior is behind. I try not to use the anatomical language, but it is three sections of that deltoid that get all pissed off. And if you have a shoulder that's out of alignment, then you're going to have compensatory patterns. And all of these muscles are going to basically get overworked and confused in what their duty actually is. Biceps, MMA combat, right? This is a commonly injured biceps brachii, the long head. All that is a part of the bicep. Okay, if you make a curl, boom. If you think about somebody that's got your shoulder and you're pulling or you're trying to pick them up, this is a commonly injured area. But it comes down to misalignment of the shoulder and repetitive stress. So commonly injured shoulder, rotator cuff. Rotator cuff means any of these muscles. Okay, they create the rotator cuff. It rotates that ball inside of the socket. However, don't get caught up thinking that this ball and socket is the shoulder, because that is a piece of the shoulder. That is a joint. That is a joint. And then you've got the joint they call the thoracic-scapular joint. GA. This is why I don't do the anatomy. You need to know that thing floats. That thing floats. This cup right here, there's a muscle on the subscap. 8 others. There's a muscle in there, in the subscap. It fits right in there, but that still has to glide on top of a rib cage. And then, once again, more nerves underneath it. So, incredibly complex. A lot of symptoms come from that shoulder. I always look at it as a misalignment. Zooming out. Boom. There's the body. Let me look at my notes. Anatomical overview of the shoulder. It's a part of development of the shoulder from birth, endodermic layer. I kind of talked about that. I touched on that. Locomotive-based shoulder function. So, when it comes to a locomotive-based shoulder function, reaching, grasping as a baby or a human, anything you're going to reach and grasp. Through reaching, grasping, it's developing the process of reach, hold. So, pulling yourself up and then crawling. So, climbing and crawling are both locomotive, up and forward. Either of those, but they come from the reach and grasp. So if you have somebody that's having trouble with the crawling or the climbing work because they have a shoulder that's impacted, start with reach and grab work. You can cross the midline or you can go away from the midline. Both of those are going to be great reaching exercises, and then alternating reaching that I've been teaching you. That's going to build up for the patterns of crawling and climbing. Other shoulder functions. This is how I put them in, higher level, really throwing, catching, carrying, lifting, and combat. So our shoulders are able to do what, first and foremost? Reach, pull up, crawl, and then they become more interactive with our environment with a purpose. With that comes, okay, what do we desire to do? Leisure or professional, rowers, commonly injured. Why? Because if something's off balance in any of the structure, this shoulder is the low-hanging, weakest part of that chain. That's where the energy is going to release from. So preventative work with a thrower to prevent the injury, or you're going to have an endless amount of humans in your care that have been injured in one of these other shoulder functions: throwing, catching, carrying, lifting, combat. Catching and throwing, sports. The only thing I can say that's instinctive maybe is hunting, throwing the spear, bow and arrow, a pull back, and a release. Those are all other shoulder functions. They're not really locomotive based. And then you've got catching, reach, catch, a lot of eye-hand coordination. You can get injured in a catch, football catch, reaching back, the hand hits here. Ooh, it might pull the last part of the puzzle if you've got a shoulder that's all jacked up when you go to catch something. Commonly injured. Carrying, picking things up, lifting from the ground, whether that's sport, competition, or just fitness. Carrying and lifting, going to stabilize the shoulder. I do like to do some carries, kettlebell carries from the side, as long as I'm thinking about my shoulders being open. Now I'm going to add a load. That can be from a resistance standpoint, from a resistance band too. Both of those relate to the carrying aspect. What I want you to know about this is carrying is a after reach, grasp, crawl, climbing has been mastered. Before I do any lifting, I want to make sure that I can reach, grasp, crawl, and climb. Before I do any combat with this shoulder, whether that's striking or grappling, I want to make sure that I can reach, grasp, crawl, and climb. So locomotive-based shoulder functions is what I choose to stick as my priority. Now you'll have people that show up that, hey, I want to lift more. Great, you're going to be able to help them. Give them the speech. If you focus on reach, grasp, climbing, and crawling, your numbers as a lifter will indeed improve. The development of the shoulder for locomotive on land and in trees. Two different types of locomotive. cursorial, which is like this, cursor back and forth, and then arboreal, which is trees, climbing, swinging from our hands and our shoulders. That is in our makeup, that's in our DNA. So as we learn to do those things again, we start to develop a shoulder in a way that it is designed to be developed. Not every human is like the monkey that wants to arboreal swing from the trees. The gorilla is not going to swing from the trees because of the sheer size of that gorilla. It doesn't have the endurance or the safety to do that. So it's more of a cursorial, ground-based power feature for him. Big and strong. That's your offensive lineman. That's your big boys that are like, hey, you're not going to do a lot of climbing. You don't want to put them on the monkey bars. You want to give them a lot of isometric work. Hold, grab, hold, elbows by the body like we've been working. And then for that wiry, more athletic-looking human, whether they're athletic or not, you may do better integrating some climbing techniques. Look at kids, they're going to climb all over everything. It's a reach, grasp, pull up, and that becomes a reach, grasp, pull up, and alternate. So a combination of cursorial and arboreal is what I believe the human being is, because we have a mixture of both. Common shoulder injuries, impact-related, accidents, car accidents, accidents in combat, running into somebody, getting hit with something, impact. Okay, that's a common shoulder injury. It's not always going to be related to repetitive stress, and now you're going to have to rehab that with some insight into, okay, where is the site of this injury? What are the tissues that are directly affected? And how can I work elsewhere to improve that area while it heals versus going after that area in impact related? Collarbone, mountain bike, crash, boom, break my collarbone. What am I going to get stuck in? A brace to immobilize. Why? Because it needs to heal. So don't be in too much of a hurry when you have those types of people that are acute phase, or even if they're 6 months to a year out from an injury like that, there's still going to be weakness and there's a risk there because it was impact related. It's not a repetitive stress, it was a break. The next thing is rest related. Somebody's got a funky sleeping posture, somebody that's sitting in a chair all day, they're going to have shoulder injuries that are rest related when they go from rest to activity or just long-term rest. You'll see old folks that have worked long hours at a desk and they'll be in that shape of the desk. That's not something you're going to fix as much as you're going to want to provide support. You go to take that person that's here and lay them on their back. The back of their head doesn't touch. You're going to want to support with a pillow. But over time, you're going to want to adapt and remove how many pillows or how many millimeters or inches behind that head because it's a rest-related problem. So you're going to attack it with better resting patterns until they can tolerate more exercise, more activity. And you'll notice the body responds because it wants to be in a better shape. It just gets stuck in these defensive shapes. Number C, repetitive stress-related activity. Repetitive stress can be in activities in daily living or work duty. This is your factory worker, your assembly line worker, your stand pivot. It's going to be in your gym, your workout fee, your fitness professional that's like, yeah, I'm fitness. That is my job. And I'm going to do these things over and over. And they're going to repetitively stress me to the point like, I've ignored these little signs and symbols because nobody's really told me anything but no pain, no gain. And now I'm going to create a repetitive stress injury. Those are the hardest to get back because you not only have to rejuvenate it, but you have to convince that person not to overtrain it because overtraining is what created that injury with repetitive stress. So something to think about. How do you adapt that person? You adapt your activities daily. You let them be more mindful of hand position. This is where their resting patterns come into play. Their recovery comes into play. And then you're really going to have to help them avoid some of the higher level other shoulder functions, right? That repetitive stress-related injury shouldn't be doing a lot of catching, carrying, lifting, or combat until they can master your reach and grasp and crawling and climbing. So that's why I've broken this into parts and then tie it back in. Overuse related, lifting, throwing, combat, same thing really as a repetitive stress related. I got redundant there, but it's two different ways to look at it. Repetitive stress would be subconscious was, I didn't know I was doing that. Overuse is I'm going hard in the paint 7 days a week because I'm going to be the best at what I do. And you train like this and you have days like this versus I'm a proponent of a steady climb. Increase your training, the volume until it's like, hey, this is the day that I need to compete. I'm going to work up to that. I'm not going to go hit that because then you've got these peaks and valleys. And that's where you get an overuse-related injury because they don't stop. Already said pain can be referred from the spine, shoulders, and the floating appendage. The only joint it truly connects through is the sternoclavicular joint, and then the scapula glides on the rib cage. The rib cage directly related to the spine. So we all are on the same page. That's why the expansion breathing really is step one. I want to create a big spine, so I got a chance of that shoulder actually operating on top of a gliding joint that it is. Open chain, closed chain. Simple way to put that is if the hand touches the ground or something solid, that's closed chain. When you close chain that exercise, you can isometrically press that hand into something and move the rest of the body and affect that shoulder versus open chain is full open chain. There are times that closed chain work is going to be safer for someone when it comes to treating an injury because you're engaging the shoulder and then you're moving away from it. We're going to get more into that when it comes to the specifics of applying this. It really comes down to a case-by-case basis. But open chain work, that's what I want to get everybody as long as they don't have an acute injury in that shoulder, in which case I'm going to close that chain a little bit and give them something for feedback. Hey, the hand needs to stay here. And we're just going to look away. We're going to shrug the shoulders. We're going to try to keep this as stable as possible by closing that chain versus keeping it open and hot. The rollouts, one of the best things for that because you can push into that ball isometrically, contracts the serratus, contracts the lats, and now you're reaching and pulling back. Discussion question 2, I will post after today, and then homework, fill your routine this week, and upload it to Telegram. So that can be done as a group. It can be any of the routine. It can be any of the exercises. It doesn't have to be the full 6-minute flow. The more the merrier because it's going to give you the early film that you want to have so you can see and track your own progresses and be able to show other people when it comes time to track their progress and give them that film study. So I'll pop that back in. I'm going to flip this thing around. I'm going to guide you through week 2 the shoulder series.
The details matter possibly too much for me.
Silly. Once again, this is all pre-filmed in another film, so you got better angles from the other film. But starting out, shoulder tracing. That's what we left off on last week. So shoulder trace, thumbs, base of the rib. Sorry, thumbs, base of the rib cage, pinkies on top of the pelvis is your standing decompression. You open it, palms forward. That's what gets everything back and down. From there, I'm actually going to take my thumbs and put them on my lateral line. So the side of my rib cage and trace from hip bone to armpit, hip bone to armpit, hip bone to armpit. I'm going to get good at that trace, trying to keep my elbows back, expand that rib cage so it becomes easier. You'll have a tendency of people wanting to round forward for this, try to keep shoulders open. Maybe the gaze stays high, and we're going to trace up the armpits, down to the hips. Up the armpits, down to the hips. From there, up the armpits, thumbs up behind the ears, hands behind the head, and we're going to be in elbow pack. So elbows open, elbows closed. Elbows open, 2-second hold. 1, 2, elbows closed. 1, 2. Someone cannot get their elbows together in the front. 1, 2. there, pinch in there, pinch in there, because when I pinch here and then open, it's going to open up this tissue that a lot of times is real tight and actively compress it and then open it up and decompress it for relaxation response. Now I'm tightening the back of the shoulders, tightening the spine, shoulders one another, little shoulder blades, towards one another, gaze high. 2-second hold, and back. Open and close. Those elbow packs open up that whole quadrant back in here, and you're going to feel it in the deep stabilizers of that shoulder. One of the best things for your butt is the elbow packs. The other one, of course, is from here. We trace up into the elbow packs. Now we're going to open out, and we're going to do underhand gyros. Thinking of the elbow, circles, keeping the elbow down below the shoulder. Some people get too high on the way up. That can compress into the shoulder. I want you to keep the elbow down. Little circles, palms up, thumbs back. Big expansive breaths. Once again, standing, kneeling, on the ground. You can do it sitting. I'm not a proponent of doing sitting unless it's absolutely required by that person to sit, because you're compressing the base of the spine and could be creating problems from above. So if you can, kneeling, standing, slant forward with the heels elevated on the 22-degree angle. More on that in the future versus the 11-degree. 2 straight feet here versus the heels elevated. If my heels are elevated on that board and my butt's way back, I'm going to feel a lot more out of the base of the shoulder because it's packing this routine. Rollouts. My favorite. This was the easiest thing for me to incorporate for hand, wrist, shoulder injuries with a workforce because it gave them the ability to do this. And people would come to class to do this. Lay on your tummy, lay on the ball. From there, engage the hands. Right? We're reaching. There's a lot we can do here using this ball for stability. But if I can push through the ball, get my chest tall, and then roll this ball out, I'm going to actively lengthen that spine. From there, I'm going to get good at rolling it out with the palms up. It's kind of a hip-centric exercise, but I'm pushing into the ball with my forearms from elbows to the back of the hands. Elbows to the back of the hands. Elbows to the back of the hands. Somebody with instability in the spine, any scoliosis patterns may feel some awesome crackles. They may feel a lot of tension. You can wiggle the hips back, the roll out side view, roll it out. Take the hips back, slam aside. Create a little resource, create a little routine, highly adaptable. The gorilla lift from week 1, you can integrate into the ball. Rollouts, great for midday flow, great for people that are sitting down, great as a warm-up before anybody's going to do anything that's compressive, opening things up. And the harder you push into this ball, the more it's going to push back. So you become your own boss on how much you push it in. Closed chain rockers, all that is, get rid of the ball, doing the same thing. I'm thinking with my elbows out, my elbows in, I'm going to rock forward and back. Up, back, up, back. Eyes up, gaze high, butt back. Pushing through the outsides of the feet, pushing through the outsides of the shins here, do the closed chain rocker, and then pulling that pressure and putting all the pressure in my hands that I possibly can, where almost you can pick up your knees. That is going to give you your serratus back. Closed chain rockers give you that serratus back. If somebody can't tolerate that on their knees, you can adapt it, put them on their elbows and their hands like a plank, and rock forward and back. It gives them 1, 2, 3, 4 points of contact with the shoulders, so there's less pressure in the knees. You can also do this on the wall. Take a ball or a foam roller, you can roll it at the wall. Same behaviors, just flip 90 degrees rather than being on the ground. I'm going to be up on the wall, driving. So there's a ton you can adapt. Think like that. Think, how can I adapt this to
for someone that can't get on their knees? How can I adapt this for someone that's not allowed to be on their feet? Because maybe they got a surgical precaution that says they can't be on their foot. That's where you're adapting. That is where sitting comes into play. If you can do all of these things in any of these positions, crawling with knees up, prone knee compression, last two. There's a new one this week, prone knee compression. The crawling 1, 2, 3 strides is what I prefer because it hits the pack, the release, and the pack again. Pack, release, and the pack again. And then alternate. Boom, you hit a 4, and you go 3. There's a lot of freedom to that. If you've got space, just crawl for distance. You can remove this one, but this is really, I designed this to be able to practice anywhere. If you've got the ability to crawl somebody up the hill in the grass, you're going to get more out of that workout than you would ever get in the gym because you're using 1, 2, 3, 4, all the joints reciprocal, spine long, and you're going uphill, so it requires you to reach, grasp, pull, reach, grasp, pull, reach, grasp, pull. The hips are always behind the rib cage when you're on the ground. If you've got a shoulder climb, crawl in a figure 8, because now they have to make a left turn, a right turn, left turn, a right turn. They're going to improve in big ways. The only thing that I haven't included in any of this yet is resistance training. We'll work to that point. All of this is open or closed chain work. That being said, the prone knee compression is the next thing I'm going to introduce. Prone knee compression is laying on your tummy. Your big toes are together. And you're just going to lift the chest and fold the hands. And take a breath. Push the outside of the feet into the floor. Move back view. And reach. Alternate reach. When we get into the spine, we're really going into details of the prone knee compression in the spine. But for you, shoulders, float up away from the chest, up and away from the floor. That's going to work you against gravity and all the muscles deep in the spine. Start to integrate and suck things back in. So prone knee compression, just like the kneeling reaches, just on your tummy. So now gravity is fully working against you. That is it for today's flow. I will drop the video for the shoulder week 2 series for all of you to practice this week. I do have you doing homework, which is film yourself. Upload it at least once. I don't think I missed anything. I'm going to open up the chat.
This is golden.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah.
Did
I
I confuse anything? Was anything I said? You want me to go into more detail on it?
I thought the part of identifying the types of pain, which is resting pain, and to try to identify it and to see what do you have to do first before applying anything else like crawling and that stuff. I thought it's so useful, so easy to apply in anywhere you are with any client.
Scalable.
So I think that's super good.
I'm going to drop my notes that I took that I was speaking from right there. I just dropped them in the chat, so all of you have it. You can kind of practice your own talking points on that so you can start to use it with your clients. Like I said, simplification is what I want. If you find it's useful to simplify that even further into a smaller, little bitty morsel, do it. Oversimplification, I don't think there is such a thing. I think if something that's perfect has been reduced to perfect, and that's going to be each of your styles really when it comes to this. Like this is my approach, and I love that you're going to use it, but you may find something that relates just a little bit more. So that's what I challenge you with this. look at my notes, make up your own, right? Like add to it. Like, hey, you know what? Here's a good overuse related. I've probably missed some repetitive stress, overuse related. That's kind of what I want to make the discussion post this week is describe a impact related accident, like whether that's somebody you know.
I have a question with the prone. Sorry, maybe correct something with the prone exercise. Sorry, Cody. I thought you stopped talking. With the prone, does that when you press your feet on the ground, your hip, you want to like internally rotate your femurs, right? That's why you're pressing the outside of the feet to the ground. So your hips should be not touching the ground, like the point where you put the pinky. Is it supposed to be off the ground, and your chest should be pressing the ground?
So,
or more of your belly.
I want you to think of the middle toe, like the middle finger, to the outside toe. That section right there is what I want you to make contact with the ground with the foot. What that does is create a pulling point down and away on the base of the spine, and like you said, naturally will internally rotate or close the hips. You're going to close the hips, you're going to push the outside of the foot. That's going to anchor the lower back. When you take a breath.
So I always hear the word anchor, and I want to feel the word anchor in my hip, in my lumbar. What would that be?
Think of it not as a feel as much as you're throwing an anchor out, okay, on your boat, so it doesn't float away. That toe is what's going to touch the floor. That is your anchor. So if the toe comes off the ground, your anchor becomes your kneecaps. Okay? Where do you feel it? You're going to feel it in the inner adductors and the inner hip when it closes, and then possibly right across here at the front of the hip when you get really, really good at it.
Got it. I love it. I feel it. Yeah.
If toes leave the ground, your kneecaps have to hold that pressure. There is and I just dropped this in the chat, the prone decompression. Once again, this is a big piece of decompressing the spine in the next series, but the prone decompression is one of the hardest exercises to master because there are a lot of details, there's a lot of things to think about. To simplify it, strong side of the foot, rotate the knees in, and think about the chest expanding away from the floor by way of the breath. Don't get caught in trying to just lift the chest up. I've been doing this a long time, so I can naturally just kind of get into that shape because I remember what it feels like. You'll have a lot of people that bend right here to create it, and that's not really what it's about. It's not a full extension like that. It's a lengthening in the chest and the forehead. Each breath can come another inch away from the floor, and you'll feel these deep spinal tissues and deep shoulder tissues, especially when you reach, tie in, and then as soon as the first thing that happens then is your foot's going to come off the ground because you're going to lose your anchor. So that's why I call it an anchor. When it comes to feeling it, you almost need somebody back there to say, hey, your foot just lifted off the ground, because you're going to forget and not be thinking about that. That is the moment that the foot comes off the ground. So prone decompression is going to be ugly at first. Don't push past points of pain. Don't try to overextend in the upper spine. Try to create the longest version of yourself.
Yeah, I feel this one helped me a lot with the prone. The prone, the shin tracers. I feel that helped a lot.
Yeah, and then the shin. That's what's fun. It's funny because I'm like, oh, I need to teach supine decompression before I teach prone decompression, which is the truth. But I'm giving you a little more so the prone work today at the end of this one, because prone shoulder work is the most difficult position to work the shoulder, because you have to maintain that prone extension while you're on your belly, and most people will lose it immediately, and then you're going to find that the shoulder collapses with it. So if you get the head, the chest, everything tall, you compress, and then you're working the shoulders in that prone position. That's really why I integrated prone at the end of week 2. Does that help? So you're not overthinking prone decompression?
No, love it, love it.
It's really just because, let me see what I'm doing week 3. Week 3
3 is rollouts, closed chain rockers, crawling, kneeling, reaches, elbow packs, underhand gyros, and shoulder tracing. So this is the only week in the shoulder series that I did include prone work. And I removed the gorilla reaches. Not that you can't do all of those. You go back and go, you know what, I'm going to do week 1 shoulder in the morning, week 2 shoulder in the afternoon, and week 3 in the evening, because that is the direction this is headed. Then you've got 3 different flows that you can give somebody, so it's not mundane and boring, unless that person's like me. I do the same thing every time. I go stand, shoulder series, unders, neck gyros. I'm going to work it the same really way if I'm intentional. Other than that, it becomes a workout. And that's 2 different ways to approach it. For all of you, it's a workout right now. That's how I designed it. So just do it. Follow along with the other YouTube video. It's more easily followed, less of a lecture like I gave today, less insight into why, and more like, hey, it's on to the next one, it's on to the next one, it's on to the next one. Last thing. Copy. What do we think? What we got? Gabby, questions? JP, Henry, Jan, questions?
Just one thing. Are you recording these classes, or are you giving us all the movements? Oh, yeah. Yes. Okay.
All the video that I'm doing through Telegram is being recorded, and I will share it. I've shared week 1. I thought I lost week 1 last week.
Okay.
I'm glad that I didn't. Because we went through the intro part, right? And I want you to be able to go back and listen to that. Because in the long run, you're going to be able to just, hey, Henry, you know 2 languages, yes? At least I don't, right? So you're going to be able to go look at my work, everything we've done in this intro, everything we've done in the shoulder, everything that you're learning, you're going to be able to go back and directly hand it to somebody in the language that you prefer. Yep.
Okay.
That is by design. So everything's scripted, everything's filmed for that reason, because I want it to be translatable to any language, which is why I use the anatomical terminology, because that's Latin and it's a mess, and it's all related to cadavers, which is a dead, not moving body, versus we're a moving organism. Like, I'm not trying to teach this in a surgical sense. I want you to see it as the shape and understand, hey, that's how I integrate it. Cool. 304, 306, made good time. Boom. I like it. Thumbs up.
Very good.
Good. Gabby, questions? Good.
You will be sending the YouTube videos also, right? Like last week, or just this recording?
Say that again.
Will you be sending the videos on YouTube just like last week, or you will be sending just this recording?
Yep, absolutely. No, you'll have. So right now in there, I dropped week 2. Everything that I just did with the shoulder flow.
Perfect.
Easier to follow, where you can push play and have a client with you. I'm giving you the green light to start to integrate some of this work with a client, since we've been through injury prevention, we've been through open chain, closed chain. Like I said, as long as they know that they're a guinea pig, it's good with me. And if you don't tell them, just don't tell me that you didn't tell them that. And if they get mad at you, it's on you.
Okay.
Also, the document, the document where we spoke about the pain and you're gonna upload that, right?
So I just dropped all of that in. That is already in the Telegram. Those
okay,
notes
cool.
that I took are in there.
Great. Send everything
future,
this way so we can write it down.
If in the future some of this gets buried in the chat, I'm going to be developing this on my end also as a reference manual. So you'll be able to go back in Unit 4 and go back to shoulder series, and you're not going to have to scroll. You're going to be able to go to the document that says shoulder series. You're going to see week 1, week 2, week 3. You're going to see the links that I've created. Okay. So it's going to be really easy for y'all to navigate. That's the benefit of me using Telegram, because it saves it all in one spot, and then I can go back in and do it. Because in 2 months, it's going to be buried in shoulder series. So next unit, we'll make a new chat. Next unit, we'll make a new chat. And then it'll all be accessible
whenever you need it on a document and in
Great.
Telegram. I dropped the NCBI bookshelf. That's your anatomical overview of the shoulder. It's a pretty concise. I read it this morning. Super anatomy, physiology related. Great if you want to learn about the shoulder. If you got questions about any of that, drop an excerpt from that in the chat, and I'll go into detail the way I would explain it if it's confusing. But know that it's all from just like a literary. It's a collegiate standpoint versus a practitioner's standpoint. Does that make sense? You know what I mean by that? Like colleges here, you got people who've been in school for 9 years and they get out and they don't know how to practice because they've never really worked with a human. They've just been reading and they memorize, and they can tell you everything about the shoulder, but if you actually give them a client, they're like, what did the protocol say? And I don't want to create that kind of practitioner with all of you. I want you to have freedom to practice.
Yeah, and that's what we do all day. We
right? Like if I tell you, this is how you have to do it, Gabby, you know what you're going to say? Fat chance, you're 1,500 miles away. I'm going to do what I want. So, cool. Ladies, gents, it's a pleasure. I will see you next Tuesday. Is this good for next Tuesday? Do we need is time's good?
Perfect.
It's good.
Yeah,
it's
perfect.
Good.
Perfect.
Always good.
Sweet. I'll schedule it. I'll chat with you guys. Look for a discussion post by tomorrow.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Cool. Later, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.